I'd like to welcome everyone to this regular council meeting of Township of Puslinch on August 14th. We are reconvening from a recess at approximately 6:15. Before we get to the formalities, I'd like to just mention Mr. Pat Moyle, as our interim CAO, has joined us at our first council meeting. So now, okay, moved by Councillor Balmer, seconded by Councillor Roth, that the minutes of the following meetings be adopted as written and distributed. A, July 16th, 2019, special council meeting. B, July 17th, 2019, council meeting. C, July 22nd, 2019, Fox Run Trail Park public meeting. Any questions or comments on those? No? All in favor? Carried. Any business arising out of the previous minutes?
Yes, I have one under July the 16th and two under July the 17th. With respect to the July 16th, specifically referencing the 2019 Bridge and Culvert Inspection Summary Report, which was prepared by GM Blue Pan. In that report, there was a description of the state of Morris Bridge, and I understand we have some good news, and I'd like our Director of Finance to comment on the funding she obtained.
All right, Director of Finance.
Hello, everyone. So we applied for funding under the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program. It's a tri-party grant program with 50% federal funding, 33% provincial, and 17% township funding. We were successful based on nomination from the province to the federal government for approximately $1 million for a bridge upgrade and reconstruction of the road surrounding the bridge. And both of these projects have been identified in the capital forecast and our asset management plan. The application to the province included design commencing in 2020 and construction commencing in 2022. We have also been advised by the province that we would be hearing from the federal government shortly. And it's actually one of our first applications where we were successful under these infrastructure funding programs. So it's a big success for the township.
Yeah.
Excellent. Great work. We're very proud of you.
Okay, next item is on the July 17th meeting. This is the correspondence from Lafarge Canada with respect to the operations and their ERO posting. I went to the public meeting, and the public meeting dealt essentially with a permit to take water, but there is a component that should be coming up in the future, which is the alterations to the site plan. I would like to move a motion that staff be requested to ask Lafarge to present to council the proposed site plan alteration after the permit to take water process. I think it's important that we get ahead of this wave and not be subject to something after the fact in the future. So I'd like to make that motion.
Okay, can I get a seconder for that motion? Councillor Roth? Okay. Councillor Roth, you can comment on that motion first. Any comments on it?
Well, I don't know if this is something we really are entitled to get, is it? Again, is it in our jurisdiction? Doesn't it have to be a major?
Well, it could be a major or minor, but I think we had the unfortunate experience where it should have been considered a major and a minor was approved by the province. So I just don't want us to be in a position whereby we're playing the same game again.
Well, it certainly can't hurt to ask for it.
Councillor Balmer?
Thank you. I don't disagree with keeping on top of this and making comments and or even requesting them to come and make a presentation to make us aware. I just want to make sure we understand. We did have some correspondence on this by email this week, clarifying that if it is a major amendment, we will be involved, or at least asked to make official comments. But if it's a minor amendment, we wouldn't normally be notified. But I think, in being consistent with my concerns about the water taking permit, I don't disagree that just making ourselves aware and giving a chance to make the neighbors aware might not be a bad thing. Might help to allay any concerns. And if we consider it as receiving information and bringing ourselves up to speed, there's no harm in that. Just as long as we understand that we may, I don't know who we'd have review those site plans to make any comments on our behalf. We'd have to have that discussion, I think, be a separate thing. We might have to have GM Blue Plan. I don't know who you'd want to have review those on our behalf and make comments based on what we heard.
Yeah, well, my response to that would be, let's see the nature of the site plan alterations, and then we can make a decision at that time if we need anything done.
Councillor Guda?
I'm not sure. I declared pecuniary interest on that topic at our last meeting, so I don't know how that comes into play into this, but I think I will.
Recluse yourself.
Make no
So,
comment.
I guess it should be in writing. Have you heard back, last I heard you were waiting to hear back from the Integrity Commissioner. Had you received?
I did, and he said I don't need to declare, so perhaps we're okay.
If
Okay.
Integrity Commissioners, I would.
Okay. I would be willing to hear a presentation, knowing though that there's no obligation for them to do that. They may not want to do it, but I see no harm in asking for it.
I know Mayor White and myself have had conversations with Mr. Cummings, and he'd be more than willing to come and make a presentation. He's already offered it on several occasions, so I don't see that being a problem, them coming and making a presentation. And if the site alteration is a concern to ours, then we can make a decision at that point. Okay, so we have a seconder. All in favor of that motion? Gary, do you have it?
Okay, the second item I have is with respect to Report to Industry Canada, proposed Rogers Telecommunications Tower at 20 Side Road North. Back in end of June, I forwarded an email from a resident where they included a article from Me for newspaper, whereby the council at that session opted to use an organization known as the Canadian Radio Communications Information Notification Service as an authorized representative to receive, review, and process applications for communication towers. Their fees are usually derived from the tower application fees. So I think this organization might be of use to us. It would certainly save time. They would be the experts. So I'd like to move a motion that staff be requested to ask CRINS, which is the acronym for this organization, to come forward. The council give a presentation on their services, and that staff provide an associated report at that time as well. In other words, what their opinion is, so that we can make a learned decision at that time.
We have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Bomer? Okay, Councillor Roth?
I think it's a good idea.
Councillor Bomer?
Yeah, I would concur, because I think sometimes we're dealing with issues that are outside of our expertise. I mean, it was one thing at the tower over at Puslinch Lake. You know, you can all understand the potential concerns related to aircraft hitting a tower, but I think sometimes we may be getting into issues that we may need some expert advice with when we're writing our concurrence letters. So I would support having that presentation.
Councillor Gwynn?
Definitely, I would support that as well.
I support it as well. All in favor? Carried. Piece of paper to sign?
That's it.
That's it. Any other business arising out of the minutes? No? Okay. We'll move on to communications. So go through these communications. Any questions or comments on the one for 10 Arnett with respect to Highway 6? Questions or comments? No? Watson Associates, I have to do them all, do they not? No.
Watson Associates. I read the information, and I'm concerned about what's going to happen with the parkland dedication fees. But in general, I'd like to ask our Director of Planning of Finance to give us an overview of the report, specifically regarding the parkland dedication fees, because that's important to us. It's a good source of income for us.
So just based on my review of Watson and Associates and MFOA's reports on the draft regulations, which are just general concepts at this point. The actual regulations haven't come out yet. And basically, some of the concerns from these consultants include regarding land appraisal costs and and ensuring that the municipality is able to obtain full cost recovery for these types of costs. We're basically utilizing the MFOA and Watson and Associates to advocate on our behalf and continue to monitor the regulations to ensure that the township is protected and we're able to recoup what we currently recover. But there are still many unknowns, and so I just wanted to provide you guys with my quick summary regarding some of the concepts noted in those reports from Watson and MFOA.
Councillor Roth, I have some comments. I'll wait till the end. Anybody else have any other comments on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, this bill is supposed to have been passed. We don't know when it's going to come. I think this starts in 2022 or something, but
January
with this
2021.
government, anything can happen in as far as changes. So I think we have to keep asking for changes. So I think we're on the right track.
Councillor Ballmer?
Yes, thank you. I guess the takeaway I took from these two reports is that it's going to cost us more to collect less. And it's just going to shift more of the cost of growth onto the residential, our residences. And I think that's runs counter to the whole purpose of development charges, which was repeated many times through here, that growth is supposed to pay for growth. And it isn't just our residential users that will bear the brunt, it's our commercial and industrial. I mean, the costs will be transferred onto all of our taxpayers. So it's costing more to get less is never good news, but hopefully with the good reports that have been provided, this feedback, the regulations may be amended to address some of those concerns.
Yeah, I when I read the information about the appraisal component of it, it concerns me how that's all going to play out, and also just the administrative burden, especially on particularly our township, which is small and already running so lean. How that's going to all be managed. But I think Watson and Associates seems to be very on top of things as they're happening, and I'm happy that they continue to keep us apprised of what's going on. So.
I had a conference call with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and they were talking specifically about the CBC, and they stressed over and over again that we needed to have a number for the formula, because the bill already has royal assent. Now they're just working on the regulations. And Councillor Sapoulis, you mentioned it the last time this came in front of us, 5%, and I initially thought 2%, but I wasn't really incorporating all the parts that we would have to fund through the CBC. So I would like to see a hard number as our comments before it's removed off the environmental registry. That would all be my concern. And Mr. CEO?
Yes, I think as you indicated, Bill 108 is the law, but the devil is often in the details than the regulations. So I know that in addition to the Municipal Finance Officers Association and the and CN Watson, who obviously are experts in this field, AMO is advocating as well around the regulations itself, because I think, and many municipalities were commenting on the need to get involved in the drafting, the regulations, and obviously prior to that, the act itself. Because as the councillor had indicated, this is potentially a net shift of costs from the development community to the existing taxpayer. And I know Oakville, Burlington, a number of municipalities have done some detailed modeling on the impact it's going to have on those growth communities. Obviously, we don't enjoy the same or have the same rate of growth, but nonetheless, it is significant. I believe that we were charging roughly $13,000 per application for parkland dedication.
Yes, per lot.
Per lot.
Yeah.
And that's a significant amount of money which is going into the improvement of parks and recreation facilities. Any change to that is going to have an impact on the budget, and the money is going to have to be found somewhere else. So I think to the mayor's point, it's important to keep the advocacy going. And I know the AMO conference is next week, I think, and I'm sure this will be top of mind and discussed at that conference, because many municipalities are very, very concerned about the devil being in the detail. And the only good news that I can suggest is I know Gary Scanlon, who's one of the partners in Watson, who has been appointed to the Technical Working Committee, and they work exclusively for municipalities. They don't work for the private sector, so they are the consultant of choice for doing development charge updates and other studies. So we're in very good hands, having the expert basically in the sector negotiating or trying to input the regulations.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments? Okay. Moved by Councillor Rowe, seconded by Councillor Ballmer. The council receives a correspondence from Watson Associates dated July 25th, 2019, and the Municipal Finance Officers Association of Ontario dated August 4th, 2019, with respect to the Bill 108 draft regulations for the Development Charges Act and Planning Act, community benefits charges related. And the council supports the comments outlined in the correspondence from Watson Associate and Municipal Finance Officers Association of Ontario. And the staff forward a copy of this resolution to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. All in favor? Carried. This one is the correspondence from the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry with respect to the major site plan amendment. Any questions or comments on that one? Correspondence from the Honorable Ted Arnott, MPP, Wellington Halton Hills, with respect to the County of Wellington submission to the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry regarding the reform of the laws. Any questions, comments on that one? Nope, it's nice to have the support from our MPP. Intergovernmental Affairs. All right, first one is County of Wellington Annual Financial Report. Any questions or comments? Emo policy update. Any questions or comments? Letter from the Honorable Ernie Hardeman, Minister of Agricultural Food.
Yes. Further, there's changes to the RED, funding. I'd like to ask our Director of Finance to comment on this new version of RED and its impact on us. Are we going to gain, lose, or whatever the case may be? Are there any projects that we're ineligible or eligible now for as a result of the changes?
Yeah, so in 2019, we applied to the RED program for the signage initiative. As you may recall, we do have a signage master plan ongoing right now, but the focus is on the Main Street areas based on that grant funding that we received for the Main Street. Yeah, so it was focused on the CIP area, but with this, previously minor capital was not an eligible project, and so it appears that signage and wayfinding would be an eligible project, so we could apply for it, and the deadline to apply is September 9th, 2019, and so staff do have the intention to apply for this grant funding.
And we have the next one up is the support resolution, opposition bill 115. Any questions or comments? Wellington District LDGPH letter of support. Any questions from public health? No. And we have the monthly monitoring report from Dufferin Aggregates on Mill Creek. Comments? No. And the ombudsman report for 2019. Any questions or comments? Moved by Councillor Ballmer, seconded by Councillor Rowe, that the intergovernmental affairs correspondence items listed on the council agenda for the August 14th, 2019 council meeting be received. All in favor? Carried. All right. We have no delegations. We have reports. We have Puslinch Fire and Rescue, Jenny's Heroes. And I'll maybe ask the chief to come down. Thank you, Chief.
Your Worship, members of council.
You want to give us a little background information on
Sure.
Heroes?
So there's two reports. I'll start off with Jenny's Heroes and that grant. Background is that the deputy chief and I determined that there was a need to reinstate coveralls as an issued piece of personal protective equipment for our firefighters. One financially responsible way to do so was through grant funding, and that's why we presented the report for a $10,000 grant that is available to us from Jenny's Heroes. Did you want me to talk more about the details in the report?
I think you just touch base on what you're going to purchase and how many coveralls and...
Okay, so we've been applying for this grant for quite a while now. We were applying for $14,000 to outfit all 42 of our staff. And so we were lucky enough to be granted $10,000. So they weren't willing to give us all 14. They did want to disperse the grant funding with a few more departments. So they offered us $10,000, which with our quote that we submitted to them will allow us to purchase 30 sets of coveralls. I think this is a great opportunity for us to take advantage of. As I previously stated, coveralls were issued to our staff. We do still have some staff that has their old coveralls. So what we'll be doing is taking an inventory of what is available and seeing if 30 covers our needs at this point. If we, in the future, we do need to purchase future coveralls, we would look at doing so through our clothing and safety budget.
Thank you, Chief. I'll just open up to Council. Councilor Rowe?
What is the lifespan of these coveralls?
That's a very good question. It does depend on use and how many times they get washed. And as I mentioned to our CAO a few days ago, I still have my pair from 2003. I did outgrow them, but they are still available for someone else to use. They do have my previous badge number on it, but that's something that we could quickly just edit and make use of them again for someone else. So, it also, part of the practice of utilizing coveralls is that a lot of fire departments presently allocate 2 sets of bunker gear to their staff, and they rotate every 5 years with new bunker gear. And the purpose for that is if they go to calls and they get their bunker gear soiled, contaminated with bodily fluids, contaminants from a hazmat call or from a structure fire, that they have a second set of gear to change into. I realize that that is not an option for Puslinch, and so we felt that utilizing coveralls is very feasible and something that we could move forward with once again. And one of the other purposes is that if they do get contaminated on site, they can remove their bunker gear on site. They would have their coveralls with them, change into the coveralls, and then proceed back to the station for more thorough cleaning. A few other uses, if I could keep going on, for these coveralls is that they would be utilized for equipment and vehicle checks when they're at the station. They would be utilized for extrication calls, brush and grass fire calls, instead of in the summertime wearing bunker gear that's really hot and warm. They could utilize these because they're fire resistant. So there's a lot of other uses for the coveralls as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I can relate to growing out of clothing.
Wasn't my height.
Councilor Palmer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Chief, for the clarifications, because I must admit I did have some questions when I read the report. I'm glad you clarified this is a reinstatement of a program. When did we stop providing?
I'm not 100% sure. So it was over 3 years ago now when I became deputy chief, and at that time we were not issuing them to our firefighters. So it stopped previous to that, and I'm not exactly sure why it stopped, but we still had a number of our staff that had these coveralls, which is good. However, we've had a high rate of turnover over the last few years, so we've got a lot of new staff that do require these. And as I mentioned, this is a great opportunity to, have it funded for free, basically.
Well, basically, but not entirely. I guess, because one of the confusions I had when I read this is that as I was reading, I thought, oh, this must be a new piece of equipment because the grant is for safety equipment. And I didn't realize we were deficient. I thought we had all the safety equipment we needed. And I think I had this perception that we're adding something we didn't already have, particularly when I read the piece at the end about the financial impact. There was no change, there was no suggested change to the budget line item, which suggested that it's already part of what we're doing. So I was a little confused that this grant was going to pay for money we didn't put in the budget this year, but would otherwise have been there. Anyhow, so I think I've got it understood now. This is for something we used to do but stopped doing, and now you want to do it again. But what I'm missing from the report is, as generous as this gift is, how much is it going to cost us to pay for this gift each year going forward? Because I expect once we do it again, there's going to be an expectation we continue to do it.
Right, and the full intent of the fire department management is to incorporate it within that budget line at that amount.
So something else would have to come out.
Not necessarily. We'll see how creative we can be. I can't make that assurance that that'll happen, but that is our intent.
So one other question, you mentioned there's 42 in the department. You're going to get 30 of these, but you also mentioned that, yours could be repurposed to someone else. Is the idea that this was considered personal gear, but what I heard you say, it suggests this could actually be shared gear, that you could have a bunch of them that people could, you could have some, that they shared it, and perhaps the numbers could be transferable when they use them, when they're using it, they put their number in it, or how does that work?
Right now, that's not the intent of the deputy chief or myself, the fire chief. So what we've done, and I don't think council is aware of it, we've outfitted all of our firefighters with personal protective equipment, and that's in a backpack, basically. So right now, they carry their own personal equipment there, so if they have an EpiPen that they require, it's in there. N95 masks that are fitted personally for them, they're in there. Right now, they've got the white Tyvek suits in there, so it's basically a real cheap class of coveralls that you would use for painting or something. It's a lot of times they're one-time use, but they've got them right now in their kits and any other requirements that they need. So our intention is to make sure that these are fitted properly for them, because they would use them at emergency calls, and then it would be their own personal piece of equipment. So to repurpose, let's say my previous coveralls, that would have to go to someone that's exactly that size. That becomes their personal piece of equipment.
Okay, so then the other question that came up when I read the report was, in terms of financial impacts, how are we going to fill the gap? If we get 30 and there's 42 or 43 people, isn't there going to be an expectation that, who are you going to decide who gets them and who doesn't? I hate to ask, I know this is...
Yep, not a problem.
But
So our intent is to outfit our suppression staff, first of all. And what we'll do is we'll utilize existing coveralls that are there. So we've got some firefighters that have been around for quite a long period of time. If their coveralls are in good shape, then they keep their coveralls, and these would move on to someone else. I'm almost 100% positive that just getting these 30 new sets will more than cover our needs at the present time.
Okay, so we're not going to see, I guess it's, one bugaboo that came into my mind was this, it seems like almost like a budget-based increase through the side door, going through the base budget increase process. So if you're convinced that we're not looking at an increase, I wish it had been more clear in the report that your intention is to make this work within the existing money in that budget.
That's correct.
Okay.
And then-
That helps address a lot of my concerns.
If I could also add, when I did mention that a lot of fire departments have a second set of gear for their firefighters, a set of gear costs roughly $3,000. We're getting these coveralls for $300, 10% of that price. So if we can basically accommodate them for the same purpose for 10% of the cost, I think it makes a lot of sense.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Councillor Goyda?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this report, and I actually think that this is a really good news story. I thank you and the Deputy Chief for applying for it, and I applaud Jetties Heroes Foundation for recognizing Puslinch as a priority candidate. I did have a similar question in regards to I guess the original request was for 43. This grant will cover the cost of 30. So there's a shortfall of these 13 sets of coveralls. And I think if I'm understanding correctly, once these 30 sets of coveralls come in, if we determine, or if you determine that there's still a need for more, that would come through the budget process, maybe 2 next year and 2 the next year after, to bring it up to whatever you think it needs to be. Am I understanding that correctly?
That's correct, if the need is there. What I can't really calculate right now is any new staff that might come aboard.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. No, otherwise I have no further questions.
No, yeah, congratulations getting the agreement. Just want to follow up on Councilor Bowman's and Councilor Gorda's concerns. I'd like to confirm that any additional requirements will be done through the 2020 budget request?
Oh, 100%. Yes, and that would be, I would be working with our financial director to make sure everything's done properly.
Okay, and that time, it would be good to have a understanding who does this type of thing. I'm not a fireman, so I don't know. You mentioned that it's done. I'm not sure if other fire departments in the county do it, have this gear or not. But something like that would help us with making a learned decision.
Okay.
Okay. So you mentioned that when you got new people coming and people are leaving. So when somebody leaves, do you take back the coveralls?
As long as they're in good shape, yes, we do take them back. So we've got an exiting list. So when an employee does leave, there's a certain inventory that they have to return to the township. And that will be included in it if this grant proposal is allowed and we're allowed to purchase the coveralls.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. I want to congratulate you as well. I think it's
Thank you.
excellent that, we found this possible funding and this grant, and I'll be honest with you, I had to Google Jenny's Heroes funding. I hadn't heard about it before, so it's just a good nod to our staff that are always thinking outside of the box for different funding possibilities. One concern I hear around the horseshoe is this a one-off purchase? Maybe the Director of Finance can answer this. So we get these 30 sets of coveralls. Now, they become an asset that we must maintain and budget for to replace every 5 years? Or is this one-off, we have them? If that were the case, that we're going to budget to replace them every 5 years, that's going to go through the budget process? Or do they automatically become part of our assets and replacement schedule?
Well, if I understand this correctly, it will become part of our assets. Each firefighter will get one. I really can't ascertain or put a number on the life expectancy of these coveralls, but as I mentioned, I still have mine from 2003. So I do foresee that this would last, size depending, or growth depending on our individuals, for most of their career, especially now that we've got washing facilities next door that we can assure that these get cleaned right away after they get soiled, and I can see them lasting for a firefighter's career, especially now where the career of a volunteer firefighter is a lot less than it used to be as far as years go.
That's excellent. So I'll just reiterate that if this asset becomes something that's on the replacement schedule and the additional 13, I believe this council would like to see it come through the budget process. So it's basically a one-off. You're basically saying they're going to last a career anyway. So this is far down the road. But if that changes, I'd like to see it come through the budget process, that it gets implemented into the fiscal forecast of 10 years for approval.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes, understood.
Any other further questions? Okay, thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
Moved by Councillor Rowe, seconded by Councillor Ballmer, that report FIR 2019-007 regarding the Jenny's Heroes Canada execution of funding agreement be received, and council enact a bylaw authorizing the entering into a funding agreement with the Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs for the Jenny Heroes Canada grant for high visible lightweight fire rated coveralls. All in favor? Carried. Did you want to speak on? Does council want the chief to talk of the fire software? Maybe give us a quick summary. It's pretty straightforward from the report I read, but.
Okay.
I'd like to see it.
All right, I'll be brief. Currently, we use records management system that's very antiquated. It's called Firehouse. And right now, what we've realized is that due to a recent purchase by a larger firm of Firehouse, there's a real lack of support as far as utilization of the software program, to the point that we're behind in actually reporting to the OFM because we can't establish those reports, and we've got OnServe working with supposedly ESO, which is a parent company for Firehouse, trying to figure out how to get this data for us. And it's just one of our frustrations that we have with this software program. The other reason we're looking at upgrading to something more current is that the city of Guelph has also realized the same problems that we're realizing. And they have just been approved to move forward with emergency reporting. That being said, we have really good ties with the Guelph Fire Department, especially through their dispatch center. And what this would allow is it's a cloud-based program. So now we would get incident reporting on real time and real data that's actually benchmarked from our dispatching center. So the quality of the data would be 100%. As far as we're getting it from their end, so it's 100%. So there could be no error on our part in interpreting the data. And it would just make us a lot more efficient. So right now, there's a lot of data entry that's done. Thank you very much, Courtney, for doing it over the last year. But she spends a lot of hours doing so. And by having this incorporated directly into our software program from Guelph Dispatch would save a lot of time. It would be really efficient. And that's just one component of the software.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Roth, any questions?
I'm all in favor of efficiency. So
That's good.
good idea.
Councillor Bulmer?
Yeah, no questions. Thank you. Good work.
Councillor Guina?
Yeah, I think that this is, even though this is an expense, I think it probably will actually save us some money in the end, because right now it sounds like there's a lot of duplication of work and also a lot of room for error. So I think that both of those will be improved, and I think that this is great. So.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, a couple of questions. What sort of savings are you getting by piggybacking with Kitchener?
Okay, so right off the bat, we realized the 10% savings, so that's listed in the report. Actually, since the report was published, and thank you very much to our financial director, we negotiated another 15% discount. So the figures that you see there will also be discounted by another 15%.
The other thing is, you piggyback with Kitchener. Is there any agreements or obligations that's required for us to have this done through Kitchener?
No, there's no agreements whatsoever. There will be no ties with Kitchener Fire or with any other departments. The only ties that will be there, and it's a positive thing, is that if we all move, and it looks like most departments in Wellington County are moving to the software, that it's very easy to share information within the software program. So that, once again, will alleviate a lot of duplication of Puslinch Fire creating certain documents, and then Guelph Aramosa Fire creating those documents, or SOGs. We can now list them together and utilize that resource.
Oh, good creative financing, too. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. As you know, I'm employed by the Guelph Fire Department. I know they've been struggling with the Firehouse software, and even just the using of the software was difficult. It was just didn't flow very well. And I know it's been on their horizon to migrate to something different. And I think it's great that we're working this multi-agency integration. And I have one question for you. I approached you, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 months ago about, emergencies on the 401. And will this software make it easier to tabulate those responses if we need to use them for delegations to the MTO or ministers?
From what I see, when it comes to analytics, this is the best software program available. So just to elaborate a little bit further, the deputy chief and myself and the deputy chief from the Guelph Fire Department sat in through RFP demos at the city of Kitchener, and we saw a variety of different software programs out there. And not only were we impressed and we thought this is the best package for us and the most feasible one, but also did the city of Kitchener. City of Waterloo apparently is jumping on board, Brantford. I also heard rumors now City of Toronto's looking at it, Brampton and Vaughan. So it's kind of it's exposed out there now, and a lot of municipalities agree that this is the software package to use for our records management when it comes to the fire service.
Great work. Thank you. Any further questions? Comments? Moved by Councillor Balmer, seconded by Councillor Rowe, that report FIR 2019-008 regarding emergency reporting records management software be received and the council authorized. Do we have to amend that number? Is this down?
No, we can leave that, and then the amendment will come back.
Council authorizes the fire chief to enter into a purchase order agreement with emergency reporting for the acquisition of the emergency reporting records management software in the amount of $4,218.30 US denomination in year one and $3,402 US denomination per year thereafter for a total of 5 years. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Next up is the Finance Department with the user fees. Any questions or comments on that one? I have a question for Mr. CA. Oh, Councillor Balmer?
Oh, you go ahead.
Okay. That report finance 2019-027 regarding the 2020 proposed user fees and charges be received, and that staff be given delegated authority to automatically adjust the user fees and charges bylaw annually based on the consumer price index inflation rate as outlined in the Ontario budget, and the council directs staff to proceed with holding a public meeting on September 12, 2019 at 7 p.m. to obtain public input on the proposed user fees and charges bylaw as outlined in Schedule A report finance 2019-027, and the staff report back to council with the results of the public meeting. Any questions or comments now? Councillor Balmer? Councillor Balmer?
I just wanted some compliments to staff on, as well as a question or two. Obviously, there's been some good thinking going on here. There's some interesting changes to this schedule. I must admit, the first time I read the piece about a pre-consultation fee, after all the work we do to encourage people to come, I was a little concerned, and then I saw the full detail of it, whereby someone who does proceed with a full application can get that pre-consultation fee back. I thought that was good thinking on staff's part, and I appreciated that. But I did have some questions about a couple of other fees there regarding the community center and rentals in general. I don't know if should I wait till after the public meeting, or maybe I'll see what the public has to say first, or talk to staff offline?
Mr. CAO's nodding his head. Yes.
Yeah, I think the purpose of this report, essentially, this is a draft, it's a straw dog. Essentially, you're going to go to the public to get input. And as part of that process, I mean, you're going to hear from the public, hopefully, and you'll
Yeah.
have your own ideas as well. This is not fully baked. The final
Good.
bylaw will be brought back after you have a chance to digest it and get input from the public.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I do have some questions, but I'll wait until after the public meeting because they may be addressed through that already, so.
Yeah, that was very good creative thinking, trying to get more money from people who don't reside in the community.
Yeah. Councillor Roth, do you have any?
No, I'm good with it.
I agree. It's creative thinking, and I like the direction it's going for our community. It's excellent. So, kudos to staff. All right, all in favor? Right. Okay, administrative department. Moved by Councillor Balmer, seconded by Councillor Roth, that council receives report ADM 2019-022 regarding the health and safety update and policies. Any questions or comments on that one? Okay.
I'd just like to comment, it's another good report that staff are following up on what they said they were going to do, and it's happening type of thing, and whoever's doing this, very good. It's Courtney? Okay, very good, Courtney.
Yeah, any other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor? Carried. Planning. Right. Moved by Councillor Goyda, seconded by Councillor Sepoulis, that report PD 2019-009 regarding an extension of use amending agreement, the amending agreement between the township and Donald J. Ivan Elliott for the land described as Part Lot 32, Concession 8, designated as Parts 1, 2, and 3 on reference plan 61R-11816, and known municipally as 4188 Victoria Road South, be received. Any questions or comments on that one? Councillor Sepoulis?
Yes, we're mindful of staff's time, and I'd like to move a motion that future agreements where zoning matters have been approved by council, that this was previous council meeting, we approved the bylaw. I'm going to like to suggest that the authority be delegated to the CAO and mayor, and that an annual report be provided summarizing such agreements. In other words, take it out of us type of thing. We know all about it. We've seen the bylaws. We've approved them. This is a matter of some red tape that we don't have to deal with at our level.
Okay, seconder for that motion, Councillor Rowe. You can comment first.
No, I think I agree 100%.
Councillor Wilmer.
Yeah, I support this, but I think we did something very similar to this already, and I just want to make sure before I would like to see staff just check, this may already be covered off in what we approved. We delegated authority to the mayor and CAO to sign agreements. I don't know if I covered this type of agreement, but I know it included development agreements and the like, except in extenuating circumstances. And that was just either the end of the previous term or early in this term.
So certainly staff can look at that report back. However, in the interim, if staff does pass this, this is still valid and standing. So instead of reporting back, I think this is still a valid motion. We could certainly pass this and then come back and notify council about the development agreements in general.
Yeah, I guess my concern, I don't want to have two policies out there. If it was just possible to,
Yes.
you know, if it would just added this to the existing policy, we had one policy that covered it all as opposed to two, but anyhow, it's all the same thing. It's just, so.
Okay, Councillor Goyda.
Yep, I'm good with it.
Okay, I'm good with it as well. Mr. CEO, do you have any concerns or questions? No? Okay, all in favor? Great. All right. We have moved by, oh. Okay. I'm going to reread that motion. So moved by Councillor Goyda, seconded by Councillor Spillis, the report PD 2019-009 regarding extension of use amending agreement, the amending agreement between the township and Donald J. Ivan Elliott for the land described as part lot 32, concession 8 designated as parts 1, 2, and 3 on reference plan 61R 11816 and known municipally as 4188 Victoria Road South be received and amended as directed to staff?
As amended.
As amended. And again, all in favor? Carried. I don't have to sign it again. All right. Now, we're on to the concurrence report for Industry Canada. Moved by Councillor Spillis, seconded by Councillor Goyda, that report PD 2019-010 regarding telecommunication application file TC-01-2019, bracket A12/XPL, bracket Explorenet site on 7105, concession 9, part lot municipality known as 935 Watson Road South be received, and the council authorized the release of the concurrence report to Industry Canada regarding the proposed 45-meter Explorenet communications telecommunications antenna. Any questions or comments? Excellent. All right, all in favor? Carried. Moved by Councillor Goyda, seconded by Councillor Spillis, that report building 2019-008 with respect to the building department monthly update July 2019 we received for information. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Carried. All right. Okay, Roads and Parks. Moved by Councillor Spillis, seconded by Councillor Goyda, that Council received the report from GM Blue Plan Engineering Report prepared by Amanda Pepin, Public Engineer, with respect to Fox Run Park Trail dated August 7th, 2019. Any questions or comments? Councillor Spillis?
I just want to confirm that we're proceeding with the tender as scheduled.
Correct, we are.
Okay, so
That's all I got.
I'm excited for that project. All right, all in favor? Carried. Recreation none. Mayor's update. Normally I give notice, but we received confirmation of 4 delegations for the AMO conference. MECP, Municipal Affairs and Housing, Minister of Transportation, and Minister of Finance. I've been working with staff and Mr. CAO drafting up the communications correspondence, and we'll definitely make them public. I'll put them on maybe the next agenda so everybody can see them, and I'm looking forward to it. Okay. Notices of motion? Anything? No, that's good. Committee minutes done. Municipal announcements. Anyone?
I just want to, I was going to mention the, what do you call it, the Lafarge, and I already touched on it, so that's fine.
All right, anybody else with municipal announcements? Anything? All right, any unfinished business? No. All right, now we're going to go to closed. Moved by Councillor Goyda, seconded by Councillor Spillis, the council should go into closed session under Section 239 of the Municipal Act for the purpose of a confidential verbal report from Mary Hassan, Director of Finance, regarding advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose with respect to a request for an extension of time to pay property taxes. Confidential report from Patrick Moyle, acting CAO, regarding labor relations or employee negotiations with respect to the Chief Administrative Officer recruitment. All in favor? You know what, I will. Just before we kick everyone out, I'd just like to take a moment to recognize that our deputy CAO, oh no, wait, that was the promotion I gave you in my very first
It was.
county meeting, and that was quite comical. But our deputy clerk and now acting clerk is leaving us, and she's moving on to her hometown of Milton to progress her career. We're very sad to have her leave. She's always has a wonderful smile and takes our harassment on the chin every day. And but I'm very happy for you. I'm ecstatic for you. It's going to improve your life. It's good for your family life, which is number one. And congratulations, Nina. And you know, and I wrote I wrote something. And I said, you know, have a good time at the second best community.
At the second best, okay. Thank you. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. So I don't know if you want to say some words, or you know what? I'll open up to Councillor Rowe.
Many words.
Do we need to turn the microphones off for you, Councillor Rowe?
Well, Nina, you will be missed.
Thank you.
And I've enjoyed working with you the last 100
3 years.
whatever. Very sad to see you go, but I know it's the best choice for you, and I wish you all the best in the future. And keep in touch.
I will.
We're going to miss your smile.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Bulmer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we recognize, I came to understand that Nina is probably the fastest talking deputy clerk I've ever, and I'm lucky I have maybe an edge. I listen to fast talking all the time, but the difference is with Nina, I'm not as fast a learner as she is as fast a talker, so it takes me a long time to catch up to speed. She's been very patient with that, and on a more personal level, I did appreciate the fact that Nina had experience with another blind individual at a previous job, and that level of understanding and willingness to be patient with me as I dealt with some challenges here, and her understanding of how to get around those, that was valuable to me, and made me feel like I was, you know, part of the team, because you made it more possible for me to participate. I'm going to expect that that's something you expressed in your job overall too. People don't tend to just do things with one person, and so I think that's a thing we're going to miss around here. And so I appreciate it. I've learned to listen fast, and hopefully I can maybe learn a little faster as a result.
Thank you, Counselor. Thank you.
I just wanted to say, Nina, I think we'll really miss you around here, your smile, your welcoming attitude. I think that, you know, residents that come in will miss you as well, because you really have that sense of care and making people feel good. So we're really going to miss that about you. I know that that you're going to be much closer to home, and it will you know, your quality of life will be much improved, and you'll get to spend a lot more time with your family, and that's important too. So we wish you all the best for sure.
Well, Nina, congratulations. We're going to miss you. We're going to miss your smile, and before every meeting, you come in and chat with us. It's good. It's great. We'll be missing that as well. Well, congratulations and all the best in your new career.
Mr. CAO?
Well, I've known Nina for 14 days. But I can honestly, but I know her by reputation, so I know that she was groomed by and recruited by the current acting CAO in Milton. So Nina was one of his first hires, and he speaks very, very highly of her. So I guess now that he has been put in the position of being the king in Milton, he took full advantage of that and decided to staff up with good people. And unfortunately for us, it meant that she would be returning back at the fold, but would still be working for him. During the limited opportunity and period of time that I've had to work here, I've observed the way she handles people, the way she handles problems, and the way she handles the public. And you know, it's the benchmark, in my opinion, as to how a public servant should behave. She cares, she's smart, she understands, and she finds solutions to problems. And that's really, really important in this business. So I've been very impressed with Nina. I've been very impressed with all of the staff. I'm quite, I've worked in large municipalities and medium-sized and small. I'm sort of, it's a pizza career. I've got extra large, large, and small, and what I've been reminded of, because I have worked in smaller places, is how people have to be a jack of all trades. And there's an enormous amount of cross-training which occurs within a very small staff complement that we have here. So, you know, one person knows a lot about zoning issues and planning issues, but so does someone else. So when that person, although it's not really in their wheelhouse, they are expected to understand, know, and provide good advice. And it's a real team. Everybody works together. And part of that is probably because there's so much activity in terms of running this business, and resources aren't what you would find in a larger municipality. So by necessity, people have to get along and people have to get things accomplished. And in the short time that I've been here, I've just marveled at the way this place works and the way that the staff and the team work together, which is fantastic. And of course, from what I've been able to gather in the short period of time is that the key cheerleader, the key leader in all of that is sitting beside you, Mr. Mayor.
Excellent. Madam Director, Finance, do you want to make some comments, or?
I made my comments recently, but I just wanted to really thank Nina, prior to Pat starting at the township, and, during that month that Nina and I had to, take care of everything. Nina was definitely my go-to person, and I appreciated your patience with me and my constant calls and my emails. So you're definitely going to be missed around here, and Milton's lucky to have you.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to try to talk really slow, which is not in my nature. I apologize. I won't say too much, but I just want to truly thank all of you for those really kind words. That is very thoughtful, and it means a lot to me. I'm going to try to do this without crying, but I came here knowing I would learn a lot about being a deputy clerk in municipal governance, and what I have learned has been that, and then some, to water monitoring, to aggregates, to gravel roads, and I hate to say it, effluent. This place has taught me so much, and I truly want to thank this council, past and present, for every single opportunity you have given me, for every learning potential. I cannot tell you what you have done for me. You have molded me, you have helped me grow, and I think I will be sharing stories about Puslinch for years to come. So I thank all of you so much for what you have done for me. I want to thank you for being a wonderful council, a well-read council, a well-informed council. You read everything we send you, and we send you a lot of stuff. It has truly been a pleasure and an honor to work with you, and I thank all of you for the kindness and the respect that you give to staff. And I just want to finish off by touching upon something Pat said, which is that the team here is probably the hardest working team that I have ever worked with, and this is my third municipality, and the people here, they all do so much, and they do their jobs with honesty and integrity and care for our residents, and I'm so proud to have been a part of this team, and I can't wait to see what else this team does. So thank you all so much from the bottom of my heart, and now I'll stop.
Okay, now back to business. Yeah. Well, you didn't make me cry.
I know.
Karen was close. So we need all in favor, so we're going into closed session is where we left off, just before we had those nice words for Nina. So all in favor and going into close? All right, carried. Thank you.